the catch-22 is, if you want to be able to do really, really cool things in the future, if you want to make $1 million or whatever, that's going to be completely dependent on what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing it properly right now because you're thinking about that, you're just going to be in this circle jerk with yourself.
Let's just go and see the world and just show them what it really means to live life golden. Yeah, we're golden, baby girl, we're golden.
Eugene, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Thank you for having me on.
I've been really excited about this. I think we've probably talked about it a few times on Insta, maybe over the last year or so.
Yeah, there's been a little bit of back and forth and just trying to make it all happen.
Yeah.
Glad we could finally do it.
Oh, I mean, it's been hard. It hasn't been easy, right?
Yeah.
Obviously COVID and everything. It's been hard to do a lot of this, especially here in Melbourne. I don't know about you, but it's been just navigating everything. I mean, you've obviously got a beautiful space of yourself, but navigating everything from that perspective of being able to catch up with people and do things. And like, there's people that I would usually see, like even Benny. I haven't seen Benny in like he's moved up the coast now, and it's kind of like, me and him would catch up, maybe once every 2, 3, 4 weeks, and I haven't seen him in forever. But yeah, it's been difficult to navigate.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, because I had my space at the very start of 2020, I went to my own little self-isolated bubble, just stayed there. I was quite content for the most part. I had plenty to keep me busy, and that kept me going for the most part, and just sort of living in my own little island. And then we got out of lockdown for a bit. That was nice. And then at the start of the year again, I moved house. I got a house and moved in there, and that's when the next lockdown came in. And same kind of deal. I just sort of very easily fell into a happy not happy, but just content existence of, this is fine. And then just forgetting how the rest of the world actually works, which I think a lot of people can sort of resonate with, whether they had their own spaces or things keeping occupied. After a while, you just sort of learn to live with that and just accept it to a degree, and just kind of forget how to exist once it's over.
Yeah, I mean, that's something for me as well. Like, I'm an introvert, so like, honestly, man, like I don't really struggle too much with that kind of stuff. Like I mean, being isolated, but it's weird, like, because what I do notice is on the back end is that how my habits change and my communication and coming back out in the world, I actually had to ask myself to go and do things, and change things, my behaviors, going out more and seeing people and, even family, like seeing family, because my mum lives up on the coast, and like for so long it was just normal that we couldn't see each other, and now it's like, actually setting triggers. Okay, I need to start to try to get back to normality a little bit. You know what I mean? Right.
Yeah.
Even like the gym, like I've struggled to reincorporate the gym back into my world, because I started running and stuff, and I did a lot of that. When because I didn't have a gym that I could go to, and I probably lost my love for training in the gym a bit, because I was stuck with a couple of dumbbells and working out in a courtyard.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
I think a lot of people have that kind of similar realization, but I don't think it's like that you've lost love with it. I think it's more you've sort of realized what it is that you actually care about.
Yeah.
Like, it's helped to redefine what your actual values are, because I think a lot of people, they started going to the gym whenever it was, 5, 10 years, even a couple of years ago, for a goal or for a purpose, or maybe it was from running from something, and they never really resonated as to why they were doing it. And then when it was taken away from them, they realized, was I doing this because I actually loved it?
Yeah.
Was I doing it out of habitual routine? Was I doing it just because it was something to keep me busy? Was I doing it for something else altogether? And I don't know, from what I've noticed, the vast majority of the time, it's not because I actually love training.
Yeah.
Like, I've met thousands upon thousands of people who are in the gym environment, who are trainers, who are coaches, who are athletes. And out of those thousands upon thousands, there are probably less than 10 people I can think of who truly love training.
That's so true.
Love training.
Like for a long time, it was everything to me. But I think for me, it was everything because I was running a business.
Yeah.
Sure. Like, honestly, like I look back at it now and I'm like, I love learning. and that was a big part of learning. You know, I had to learn, you know, obviously being a PT, it was like, well, I'm my biggest test dummy. You know what I mean? Like I can try different things, and I had to learn obviously through doing, and that's why I fell in love with it, you know, back then, and more so I think I was in love with the learning. And then once I kind of got out of that environment, I've kind of found the same love for business.
Right.
And it was like, okay, now that absorbed me, and I would use, you know, I think for me it was like, well, I still need to keep an optimal level of health. And that's kind of how I think of it now. So it's like, you know, as I was saying, I'm into boxing.
Right.
And I just love this, you know, like I'm just absorbed by that at the moment, learning the skill.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm working one-on-one with a coach, and I'm doing that about 3 times a week. And yeah.
How long has it been?
Well, so before COVID, I think I was doing it for 2.5 months, 3 months. And then during COVID, I stopped for maybe a month. And then we started doing park sessions again. So I got back into it. And then since the last lockdown finished, you know, 3 times a week since then. So slowly getting back into it, building, you know, and properly, like, you know, being in a ring and these kind of things. But I'm at that stage now where I've actually got a base level of skill. Right. So now the learning really starts. It's the nuances that you get. So
absolutely
loving it. Like, and I think that's what I love the most, you know. But it's interesting because, like, you know, I'm trying to get a routine of going back to the gym, and you know, I've never done training for boxing before. You know what I mean? So like I've gone back in and I'm doing my normal workouts, and I'm like, I know this is not helping me improve what I'm trying to do over here. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Like I just find myself like, so I've put some things in place to change that. But yeah, it's definitely interesting times. I think it's it'll be interesting. I think everyone on an individual level is probably going through something a little bit new right now, and or, you know, refining certain things and stuff like that. So it's definitely everyone will be able to relate.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I want to talk to you. I don't know whether anyone you've had these conversations maybe or been on podcasts before, but I'm really interested in your business journey. I've watched from afar, and I'm talking, you know, like I remember. I reckon it was my 2nd year as a PT.
Right.
And I remember watching you. I think, I can't remember how I consumed your content back then. It was because it was a while ago, right? I think it was probably, 7, 8 years ago. But, 6 years ago. But I've been lucky enough that I've been able to watch it, you know, and see the different business models, and, you know, from you know, coaching. And then I think I watched you went and travelled the world, and you had the muscle mechanics seminars and workshops, and then obviously coming back and now then seeing Ganbaru take off as well. I think it's such an interesting journey. So I'd love for you to kind of take us through that journey, and we can kind of have conversations around that and starting, you know, back at the start, and you know, I mean, there's going to be people here that obviously know you, but there's also going to be some that don't, so giving a bit of a background on yourself.
Yeah. Okay. Man.
This is winding back the clock, by the way.
Hey?
That'll be winding back the clock for you.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking, like, when I started, the only real job I've ever had is a personal trainer, and that's all I am now. People think, oh, you're a physio, you're a doctor, or you're a chiro or something. No, I'm just a personal trainer. And that's been my whole life since I was in high school. And I know from the outside, you're in a different perspective because you've seen it from at least 5, if not slightly longer years. So you've seen when I was still coaching, working with people, to how to grow now. But for a lot of people, they think, oh, you've either like some random influencer who just got really lucky, and you were the first person to, you got part of the first, what do they call that? Early adopters of social medias, or you've had some kind of elaborate business or marketing plan or anything like that. And I think, well, I really haven't. I've just sort of lent into whatever I was interested in, or also for a big part of it, whatever the market was demanding. So I was a personal trainer since 2008, 2009, working in commercial gyms, and I really enjoyed that. So I always keep that in the back of my mind. I'm like, hey, whatever I'm doing now is just a bonus. It's just great, fantastic. But I still do love working with people whenever I can. And just through doing that, like one of the big questions I get is, hey, how do I become an online coach? Or how do I start working with people online? How do I start traveling or whatever? And I don't have necessarily a very good business answer for that.
Yeah.
Where it should be like, oh, you've got to create this funnel. You've got to have this free offering, which is going to attract a wide web of people. You've got to funnel them into this first coaching 12-week plan, then get them into that, and you can make money from this, pull that into this. And like, I don't give a shit about any of that stuff. It's just, I started doing online coaching, or I started traveling, or I started running workshops because I had demand for it. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I just did this? Like at the start of every single one of my big pivoting points in my career, whether it was going from online coaching into doing, or from personal training into a little bit of online consulting and coaching, and going from that into a little bit of mentoring, going from that into a little bit of workshops, going from that into doing world tours, and then creating an app, website, now this clothing label, it's always just come down from asking myself, oh, wouldn't it be cool if? And then thinking, okay, why not just do that? So it's been however many years that has been of me just asking that question whenever I get pushed into that corner of saying, oh, I'm kind of at a wit's end of what to do next, because I'm personal training and I'm doing well at that, and I've got demand for that at the gym. I can't service these people. I can't service the wait list of people, so how can I help them? It's like, well, I can maybe find ways to make my current clients more autonomous, so they don't need to see me every single session. They can see me every single week, every single fortnight, every single month. And then that looks all like online coaching. Yeah, where they're coming in for just a once-off check-in. Does that check-in need to be in person anymore? Oh no, I know them well enough to be able to do it all via some kind of consultation via video, maybe. And that was what grew into online coaching. That was over the course of about 3 or 4 years.
I reckon you might have been, like, there was obviously people doing it back then, but I actually think I remember, like, almost signing up, you know, like...
Almost. Then you get over the line.
But I remember going, wow, like, online coaching, that's pretty cool. Yeah. You know, and I honestly remember back then, and you know, one thing that, I can say, looking back at a lot and being able to see that, your journey from an outsider's point of view is like, I look at you as someone who was really curious and also didn't care what other people thought a lot of the time. Like, you were willing to go out on a limb, or you were willing to kind of try things and follow that curiosity, which I think is something that a lot of people struggle with. And especially now, like, it's a different world. Like, social media is a beast right now. But that's kind of like, you know, I always, and, you know, I was always amazed at how, you know, like, I remember being amazed when you were traveling the world doing workshops, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. You know,
so was I.
And that was like, you know, like, you could probably count on your hand how many people were actually doing that. You know, like, people were doing workshops, but like maybe they do it around the US, and you know, people from the US might travel around the US, but people actually traveling, and maybe that's just my point of view. Like, maybe I didn't know many of those people back then, but yeah, like, I remember looking at that and going, because I think the other thing is, like, that's not an easy thing to do. Yeah, like, a lot of people would look at that and go, that's so cool, I want to do that. And I've been pretty lucky that I've been able to see Jordan's experience, you know, and he's done the same thing. But what everyone doesn't see is how hard that is, you know, like traveling, and, you know, the sacrifice that goes into that, the sleeping patterns, you know, and keeping the routine, and just how much sacrifice actually goes into something like that.
Of course, same with anything. People always see the flashy whatever, whether it's traveling, or it's having an online coaching business, or having clothing label, or having anything. People never see the other side to it, the work that goes into it, the anxieties, the planning, the whatever, and that can be for any profession. That can be for musicians. That can be for stand-up comedians, any kind of celebrity. It can be for watching a movie. Your favorite movie's coming, you go and see it in the cinemas, and you think, oh, it's so easy for The Rock to just be this big hulking dude on camera and be a badass. And when you really study something like acting, you realize how much goes into that, how tough that actually is, to be able to do that. Even just look, not even a big Hollywood style like that, but just like your average not average, but just on TV. Even being a podcast host or being a radio talk show host or whatever, people are like, oh, wouldn't it be really nice if I could just have all these really cool guests on and do a podcast? And like, well, it's actually really fucking hard to be able to make a conversation flow. Like it's so second nature when you turn on the radio in the morning, 6 a.m. you hear the morning talk show host and like, oh, they're just having a conversation. It's so easy and I can do that. Why not? But it takes a lot of work to be able to get to that point. And even when they're at that point, for a lot of them, there's still a lot of refining to that and making sure that it always just stays a very embellished and polished product. So I mean, yeah, to bring it back, like with touring and running workshops, it's very much the same because I mean, I still don't, I've never had anyone planning things out or doing it or marketing or selling or even like a travel agent helping to plan out what's the best hit list for all these locations. So that was a fucking nightmare, having to tour manage, having to think about the content, having to think about sales, having to think about just talking to find locations with different gyms. Like that was a nightmare. I just jump on Google saying, okay, I've got some demand in Belgium. What are some gyms in Belgium? What I ask people who are demanding from me, hey, you guys are from Belgium, what gyms should I be going to? Is this suitable? I don't know. How do I get to Belgium? I don't even know where Belgium is on a map, but I'll try to find a way to get there. But it's, as I said, it's exciting. It's a new problem to solve. And that's all that I really focus on doing through every aspect of my business is like, coming back to personal training into online coaching is I've got a problem of I have 200 people who want to work with me and I can only work with 10. How can I hopefully work with 50 or 100 people at least? And then what about the other 100 people? How can I help them? How can I solve their problems? And that's what creates workshops. That's what creates online coaching. That's what creates different models.
How important do you think that is, right? That skill? Because, you know, I mean, that's the question. Like, how can I do X? You know, like, and I think that's because it sounds such like a simple principle, right? But it's really critical thinking, you know. Yeah. And you know, there's a guy I follow. His name's Keith Cunningham, and he's a business dude. He does all the business for Tony Robbins, all the presentations and stuff. But he's got a book called The Road Less Stupid, and it's like he just simplifies everything to this point. And he's like, you know, it's like they're not even business principles. It's like he calls it thinking time. It's like if you've got a problem, like and I think he gives you like 5 questions, and it's like, you know, number 1 is like find the unasked question. Number 2 is like, what's the second and third order consequences of the current decision? You know, and then it's like rejig how you talk to yourself. Like, so instead of saying I can't do this or I don't have this, but okay, how can I X with Y? Or how could I achieve X by doing Y? Or something like that. And it's like, because you just ask yourself that question. Okay, well, I can only work with 10 people. How do I work with 50? Because I feel like that's a skill, or it's, you know, maybe it's just the curiosity in you, but how important do you think that's been to that evolution that you've been on from online coaching to education to workshops to seminars to the app? You know, like how important do you think that's been to obviously all of that?
In retrospect, I see how important it is, and I really respect it. I go, wow, that's something that is actually not a rare commodity, but something that a lot of people overlook and people don't realize is very, very important. It's just having general problem-solving skills. That's, I mean, even if you don't give a shit about business, that's just what we are as humans. We're problem solvers. Okay, whether or not you want to grow a humongous business or brand, or if you just, you know, you're happy doing whatever it is you're doing as an everyday job. At the core of any job, it's problem solving. Okay, you could be a receptionist. Your job isn't a receptionist. Your job is to solve reception, administrative-based problems. And I think whether through upbringing, probably, well, I guess most of it is through nurture more than anything else. A lot of people don't get taught how to lean into that skill, or they feel like they don't deserve to put themselves into that arena to be solving that skill. I think, oh, like, it's not really up to me to solve that problem. It's somebody else's arena, or somebody else will solve it for me. I'll wait for someone else to do it first, and then I'll follow in their footsteps and just do what they do, kind of thing. Because they don't really have the the confidence to back themselves for it, to say, well, I'm the one who can solve this problem, or I'm the only one who can actually deal with this. And I did that. You know, there was many years ago, I nearly opened up a gym, and nothing like what I have now. It was going to be like a group fitness kind of gym, personal training, private studio. So you do one-on-one sessions, but you also do group sessions, and that would just be a good little model. Have some PTs working there, a few members, and they've got different options available. Like, that's great. And the big reason, I mean, there's several reasons why it failed, because it was a very bad partnership for one, but the biggest reason was that I was trying to circumvent backing myself. Like, I didn't want to back myself to solve my own problems. I went to this other person as a business partner because I wanted them to solve the problems. I didn't want to learn, or I felt out of my depth trying to run a business, trying to do things like create systems for management and running employees and payments or whatever, and all that admin-y stuff. Like, I don't care for that. This other guy, he's got all the systems worked out. He's got this proven model for running gyms. I'm just going to partner up with him, and it'll be so much easier. Then I can learn from him, which is, you know, I still wanted to learn it, but I thought, why should I scratch around myself trying to learn it on my own when I can just let somebody else solve the problem? And it was that mentality that I brought to it that led to a lot of the demise for that, and that's why it didn't open up, which was obviously a very positive thing for me, not having it happen, because otherwise I'd probably be doing that and wouldn't be doing anything that I do now. But yeah, it all came from just, I guess, learning, and that's why now I really respect the idea of identifying and solving your own problems more than anything else when it comes to anything in life, not just business. Like, I think anything you learn in business should extend well beyond business.
100%. I can look back at any partnership that I've been in, and when I'm doing it, like exactly what you said, where I'm looking to have someone else solve the issue, my own issue, right? Like this issue that I have that I'm not dealing with, or, you know, maybe I'm trying to, you know, maybe it's not the right terminology, but skip the queue. You know, like I'm trying to get to here without having to do all this, right? And it's like, you know, and let's say here is this outcome that I believe is a thing that's going to make me happier, or something like that, you know. And that's obviously the wrong perspective, because, you know, one thing that I've learned is that, you know, the partnerships that work the best are the ones where people they actually have an aligned vision, and they're actually really passionate about this process. Not because I go, oh, no, like that's going to solve my issues. That person or that thing outside of me is going to be the answer, you know, to all my problems, and life's just going to be perfect after that. Yeah, you know? Sure. And it's just not the case ever. It's like usually that's when you know it's going to blow up. Yeah, you know what I mean? Absolutely. So it's interesting. Like, you know, I've been pretty lucky that myself and John are working together, and it's seamless. You know, it's like we're both on a collective journey. You know, and we're really passionate about what we're doing. You know what I mean? And we're both really enjoying the process. So that's why it works. I'm not sitting here and saying, I need you to make absolutely everything successful. It's more like, no, like I've got a big part in this, you've got a big part in this, but we're both not just relying on one other person. And that's the same with anyone that I've worked with. But previously, like, there's been times where I've worked with someone and that's not the case. Right. But I'm like hoping that that's the case, you know, and you can feel that inside of you, I reckon. I reckon at times you're like, I know this is not going well, but I'm still allowing this willful blindness to kind of, it's, you know, to continue on its path, you know, like I'm just ignoring this thing over here that kind of is keeping on, and that keeps on happening. And that's probably, you know, definitely a big lesson for myself, is just, you know, you can't be willfully blind. If you've got an issue and you're trying to rely on someone else to solve it, it's just not going to happen. Yeah, for sure. It's a weird one, because on one hand, like, we talk a lot about, like, outsourcing. Know your strengths and outsource what you're not good at. But there's a difference between, I guess, outsourcing when you know you're not good at something, and saying to someone, hey, I need an accountant, I need a bookkeeper, because I know I'm not going to do those things too well. Difference between going to someone for that, or, I guess, getting them to just solve the problem in a weird, like, you still have ownership over it. For me, it's a perspective thing, right? It's like, I think it's like, you know, one thing that we'll both be able to kind of relate to here is like, it's like coaching, right? You're coaching a client, And we've all known when a client comes to you and they put all the onus on you.
Right.
Right. And they're like, yeah. And like in their mind, it's like, it's the coach. I'm not with the right coach. That's why I'm not getting the result. And although in a world, or in some cases, that actually might be the case, it's the perspective of that, no, this is not equal. We are not equal in this journey. It's all you. And if I fail, it's your fault.
Right.
Right? Because then I don't have to deal with that. You know, it's the same in business. It's like, you know, if you blame absolutely everything on the business partner or whatever, in reality, it's actually more of a reflection internally. And I think that's that self-awareness piece. It's like, you know, when you go into partnerships where you're like, yeah, cool, like this person's they're going to be the rock, they're going to be the savior, and all of our success is based on that one person. Really, it's like, well, I'm just trying to deflect that situation so that I don't have to take ownership of whether or not this is successful or not.
Yeah.
And that's like, and you know, you can correlate that to any situation. It's like, that's how we work as humans. Like, it's much easier to, you know, that's why we get like fad diets and these kind of things that take off. It's much easier to blame the diet I was on than to, you know, have that internal conversation with myself and just take ownership of it. Yeah. And I think that's, you know, I've had that multiple times in business. Basically, anything that hasn't worked out for me is probably a reflection of that. You know what I mean? It's like I just haven't taken ownership of it.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
100%. So for yourself, like, is there a single moment, or not a single moment, because I don't think there will be, but it's more like, where do you look back at and say, like, is there moments where you're like, I'm so glad that I made that decision? So maybe it was like touring, or maybe it was like to start your own app, or do you look at it more of as like a collective journey?
So like, am I looking back on, let's say there was a tour, so I'm saying I'm so glad I did that? Yeah,
more like so I mean, obviously achieving what you have, like, and you know, you'll probably be quite modest, right, in around it. But it's like, along that journey, is there a particular moment that you're like, wow, like, I'm so glad because that had such an impact on me, just as a person, you know, and that helped me really progress? Or is it more like you just look back at the whole journey and like, wow, like there wasn't really one moment?
It's a tricky one. I reflect a lot on, I guess, there are those big pivotal moments where I was touring for so long, a lot of the people that I was meeting, the relationships I was just fostering with all these different people, and there haven't been any like singular one thing, I guess, because it is part of that whole journey. Because I'll never take stock of it and say, okay, that one event, that one day, it's a collection, and it is something that's just very, very exciting to me. To be able to, because even now, like when I look at the fact that I don't travel anymore, you know, because of COVID, like that cut off, I had another 40 weeks of touring booked for last year. I had to stop all that. I don't miss it in a way. Like, I'd like to do it again. It'd be nice, great, for sure. Like when the world opens up again, I'll be going back on tour. But I don't look at it and be like, oh, I just need to get back onto the road and start doing that again. It's like, okay, no, I'm grateful I've done that. It's been a lot of fun. And what else can I drop my energy into now? I've never really been one to, I don't want to say slow down, because I do slow down, take my foot off the gas a lot. But I never look back just to say, oh, wow, I've done this. I've done that. Because I don't think you've ever done anything. You're always doing. It always is things, and even though like the past tour is now over, my life is not over. I'm still doing more with that. Yeah. I'm still going to leverage off that tour. I'm still going to, I don't like using that word leverage, but I'm still going to leverage and make the most of those relationships that I built back then with those people and all those times, those experiences. I don't know if that answers the question or not.
It does. It does. I mean, and I think like, because I mean, you never look back at one singular moment and just go, yeah, like that was it. But it was more like, I think like there's certain time, like, I mean, and I'll give an example. Like it's crazy how things work, but it's like with Jordan, right? So Jordan's a good friend of mine and has been, but you know, we also did some things in business together and you know, like based on friendship. But I look back at that and I go, I'm so and I'll share the story, but I was traveling around the US just on holiday, but, you know, doing networking at the same time, trying to meet as many people as I can. And me and Jordan were just like messaging on Instagram prior. And I'm like, oh, hey man, I'm in San Fran. Do you want to catch up? And I had no idea like where Jordan actually was in San Fran. I know he's in San Fran.
Right.
I'll just see if he wants to catch up, because we'd been on a few, like I think we had like a call maybe and been messaging a fair bit. And he's like, yeah, man, like come do a session. We'll do some training together and stuff like that. And then like I looked up where he was on my maps, and it was like a 3-hour train ride.
Right.
Right. And I'm like, fuck, okay. And then I like, you know, for me, I look back and I'm like, okay, like I remember thinking, okay, like should I actually go and do this? You know, like we've got to leave tomorrow. Like, you know, there's like, it was just moving parts. And I'm like, no, you know what? Like it's fucking cool. Like, he's said yes, and like it would be cool. And so I got on the train, no idea where I'm going. Like, you know, could have been a disaster in terms of getting off the right train stops and stuff like that. And then like ended up going and training, and like we just spent the day together, just training, cool conversations. But then I'm like, you know, that spun into like a friendship that I think for the next year we were probably on a call every week or something, every second week.
Right.
You know, you come out twice to Australia. We put on seminars and stuff like that. And it was just cool. Like, and it was like, you know, so like for me, I look back at, and I would assume like with yourself as well, like you've obviously built some amazing relationships and you know, through your travel, but through all the different pieces of work that you do. Like, is there, and that probably is that collective that we're talking about, those collective of moments, because that's not the only one, you know, like there's many across the journey. What do you think the lesson is, right, out of maybe this collection of moments? Like, what would your advice be to someone around experiences and potentially networking?
Right. I would look at it and like I've built up a lot of, like, same with Jordan, good relationship with him, with a lot of industry people here might say, oh, it's all networking. And I never approached it with that mindset. Like I never liked seeing clients as prospects or leads. Like you don't start fitness first or commercial gym and I say, hey, these people are prospects. People on the gym floor, they're leads. You know, here's your lead sheet. Go call these people up. I never saw it as that. I just saw it as people, and not even people that I wanted to help per se, because there are some people on that lead sheet, some people on the gym floor, I did not want to help them. I couldn't give two shits about most of them. Okay, that's just the reality. Like, I don't like every single person there is in existence. People out there are not going to like me as well. I really focused a lot over the past 5 or 6 years on getting very real to myself about what kind of people I like, what kind of things I like, what kind of things I dislike, what kind of things I'm happy to forego and turn away from, or things I'm neutral towards as well. And anytime there was something that I liked or enjoyed, that was it. Like, as soon as I realized that I liked a certain person, and this is not just like a relationship, it could also just be a business thing or whatever, I was like, I'll do whatever I can to be around that, to get more of that. I'm just going to put everything I can in motion to make it happen. So it'd be a very similar thing to the Jordan situation, where if you like the guy, or if you're interested in what he has to share with you, you'll find a way to make it happen, and it won't be seen as like a chore, it won't be seen as a work. It's just like, I just want to do this. I'm interested in doing this. Like, I remember growing up, I was reading a lot about John Meadows. He was like a big guy who I looked up to in the bodybuilding industry. Not necessarily for his physique, or not necessarily for how strong he was. Just like, I just liked the way that he was just so interesting. There was stuff that he talked about, the training techniques. So I reached out to him just via email saying, hey, like, I'd like to be able to just learn from you. What can we do? And he was like, look, here's my day rate. It's going to cost you about $50K to bring me out to Australia. And I was about, I would have been, I think, 21 or 22 years old. $50K, like, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to anybody at any age. It's like, it's a big outlay for a guy I don't know. And I was like, I don't have that. I don't make that in a year. But it's the only way I'm going to be able to get to meet you. I've got to find that money. And it was just a matter of then saying, what do I need to do to set in motion to make it happen so I can hang out with you? And I know many people will look at it and be like, okay, here's a guy like John Meadows, and how can I make money off this? How can I make a workshop off this? How can I boost my name more in the industry? How can I become a promoter of shows? How can I create this whole model around him or whoever the other influencer or whatever coach may be? For me, I was just like, no, I just really want to hang out with this guy. And as anybody would, there is a price associated with that. How can I make this happen? What can I do? And that was like a big moment for me where I said, okay, I've got to start doing workshops. I've got to start creating a workshop, an event for him. So, and just work on selling that out and logistics behind that, to make that happen. And so I guess the advice there for people is, I think people have really hard have a hard time with choosing what they like, what they dislike, and saying, okay, this thing that I like, if I truly like it, I better be willing to just run full bore at it and not care about anything else. Like, people are like, oh yeah, I like chocolate flavored ice cream. Are you willing to fucking just go through and do whatever it takes to get chocolate ice cream, or are you gonna be happy with vanilla on the side?
It's crazy, man. Like, you're 100% spot on. Like, because not many people know this, but when I brought Jordan out, I didn't make a cent. I gave everything to him.
Right.
I just wanted to hang out with the dude.
Yeah.
We had a good time when I hung out with him last time, and it happened twice. Both times I did not make a single cent. And because I actually wanted him. Like, I'm like this. Right. I wanted him to make it worth it for him, and I wanted him to have a great experience. And that was, the before that seminar for him, I think the last time he come out to Australia, I think he was charging $20
right,
for a seminar. And I was like, man, you were way too smart and got too much value to be doing that. And this was in the early days of Prescript and all that kind of stuff. And it was like, it's the same thing. Like, we would get an Airbnb. I live in Melbourne, and I'm like, no, like, let's get a fucking Airbnb together. And we would just like coffee shop every morning for like 5 hours. And I'm just like, fuck, man, I could do this every day. You know what I mean? And that was what actually motivated me to bring him down. But then it's like, I even think about what I'm doing now. Like, this is like, I started podcasting. I fell in love with podcasting. I'm running 100, like, there is no brick wall that I'm not going to run through just to make this happen. You know what I mean? So I think you're 100% spot on with that. Is like, I look at it this way, is like, I'm really enjoying this. So that's, like you said, that's it. Like, it's just, I'm going to put everything into it, because I'd rather spend 100% of my time doing something I enjoy that may be difficult and it may be hard, but it doesn't feel like that. Like, and it may take time, but I'm willing to do that because I enjoy it. Yeah. And that's the experience that I want.
For sure. Well, I think people don't realize what the alternative is. Yeah. The alternative is you spend the same amount of effort, energy, time doing something that you're not that passionate or care about or love that much. Why would you do that? But it happens. I mean, how many people are stuck in relationships they don't enjoy for years on end? It's like, why are you still dating that person? Why are you in that relationship when you're not really passionate or enjoying it or connected with it or just in love in that? If it's a intimate kind of thing, why are you still there? But people go through the motions, because to do anything else would be to have to make a choice of like, what is it that you really want? And people don't really understand that. They don't really understand what their values are. They don't understand what they really care about, what they like or dislike. And then I think they choose the easy option of just staying, because it's much easier than having to confront themselves.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same principle we literally just talked about before. It's like the ownership, right? It's like, because when you make a decision, you have to own it. When, because there's consequences, right? And I think, I don't know, like, I'd be interested to hear what you think about this, but in my mind, it's ticking over at the moment, but it's more like the difference between self-love, and I know that's kind of a bit of an airy-fairy word, but like, it's like this notion of a good person. And the good person does everything for everybody else, but not themselves. And is that, like that dynamic where it's like, because I think that's the difference, right? Is like, my whole thing, or like the way I look at and my perspective on life is that I need to really invest in myself, and then that's when I can actually invest in other people. Because if I'm not doing the things that I enjoy, it's not sustainable to just worry about everybody else. But I feel like it's an easy option, or it's a hard, like you said, it's a hard choice to make, to go all in on the things that you really love and enjoy, because of the obligation that you feel you need to be doing things for other people. Like, I have to work a job that I hate because I have to put food on the table for my family. And although there is some truth to that, I still think that that's a choice that someone has to make.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
For sure. I think people are just very scared, but also probably just unaware of the power that they have over their own life, their own destiny, their own whatever it is, and they just need to learn how to, as you said, like, I guess, back themselves, for lack of a better term. I mean, most people are out there living other people's lives. They're not living their life. They're not living it on their terms. And why? For what reason? Like, there's a grey area though, because people hear them like, oh, you should always live life on your terms, do what you want, and they take it to the hedonistic extreme. Oh, fuck everybody else and just do whatever you want and tread on other people. Yeah. But then there comes the whole morals and compassion as well for other people, that needs to be weighed up into that as well. Like, I know plenty of people who go all in and back themselves, but they're absolute dicks.
Trample.
Yeah,
they're just,
for sure.
Anyone who's in the way.
They'll do whatever they can to get ahead. And it's like, well, on one hand, hey, admirable, living life on your terms, but you're an absolute twat with the way you're doing it, because you have no compassion, no morals, and what kind of human being are you really? But when you really look deep into that kind of person's personality, are they really doing it for themselves? And probably not. It looks on the outside, externally, oh yeah, they're doing whatever they can to get themselves ahead. But why are they trying to get themselves ahead? Are they really doing it for their own intrinsic motivation, or are they doing it for the validation? Are they doing it to run from a void? Are they doing it for something else? And it's usually that. So it really comes full circle again. Whereas when somebody really is truly intrinsically motivated and aware of what they want and are accepting of that, oftentimes you don't see the same unethical or amoral dilemmas arising where they're treading on other people to get ahead and things like that. It comes across a lot more genuine, because it usually is a lot more genuine.
It's the emotional intelligence piece, isn't it? It's literally a superpower.
Yeah, for sure.
Self-awareness as well. I'm now interested. I mean, now you're obviously working with Ganbaru, and you've got your app and your new apparel range. I'm interested to hear kind of how you view things as a business, from a business perspective, around, like some core pillars, right? So we've talked a little bit about content, and I think, I look at what you do and I go, wow, knowing what we do here, and we probably do it, once a week and then repurpose a lot of it and stuff like that. But I'm interested to kind of get a gauge of how you view things from a business perspective and how you actually start to navigate the future, because I know that's something that you've shown that you've been able to do it well. So, because I'm probably going to, I'll talk about it and I'll be like, this is business, and you'll probably come at it from a bit of a different direction, I think. But what's your view on, how do you navigate your own business and make decisions around what the next thing is that you're going to do? And I don't know, we mentioned a little bit of curiosity there, but is that all that you do, or do you kind of focus on trends? Is there, how do you navigate that space?
It really, like, if you look at some of the biggest moments through the development of Ganbaru, like, it first started 2018, it was a website, and it was a way for me to deliver all the content that I was giving in workshops, but online, because there are many people out there who weren't able to attend events. And I didn't even film stuff just for the website. It was, I'm trying to think back now, I'd say maybe 90% of it, apart from an exercise library, which was a big library, but again, a small part of it, but 9% of the content on there was just me from my workshops. Like, I would have a camera, I'd set it up, and I'd be running a workshop on back training or glutes or whatever it was. I'd film that and chuck it on there and say, hey, this is the 2-hour workshop from London, 2018, when I was teaching about glutes. How about it? And that's all it was. And you can look at it from an outsider and say, oh, then you developed workouts on there because you were trying to attract that market, or you were trying to, and then you brought it, you made an app because that was the trend, was everyone was making apps at that point in time. And then you developed the nutrition side of it or whatever. And I was like, well, actually, again, it wasn't really like that. You can look at it like that, but it was more so, again, coming to the problems of, hey, people are enjoying this. They're enjoying the theoretical, the content side of it, but they don't have any application. They're going to come on there as a nerd saying, I want to nerd out and learn from you, Eugene, but they don't really have the hands-on, here's what a program looks like that employs the principles taught in this workshop. So it's a very simple thing. Like if I did everything all over again, knowing what I know now, it would have been a very different first iteration, as hindsight 2020. But it was the same problem-solving mentality of, okay, what's the current problem? People are coming back to me with saying time and time again, hey, we love this, but I still need something to help me train under these principles. Yeah. Where's a template? Where's a program? I was like, oh, okay, maybe people would like to be able to see some kind of training from me. So I started working on putting actual programs on there. And then it was like, well, you can't just put a program on there because of the way that I know that I used to work with people as a one-on-one coach in person or online. It was, how can I give people the tools on how to make this more customizable? It can't be a customizable thing of like, I'm going to write you a custom program, but how can I give enough of a spread of content within the program and give people enough of the ability to tweak and adjust things to make it customizable in that way. And that's where I'd go to a guy like Mark and say, hey, look, Mark, I want to give somebody a program. I want to put a program on my website. Should I just do an ebook? And that was our first thing. We were like, oh, let's just write ebooks. Let's just do a bunch of ebooks. You do a strength ebook, you can do a power building ebook, a bodybuilding ebook, a rehab ebook, a knee ebook, whatever. I thought, great, we can do that. Put them on the website, and that's ticks that box. But then I was like, well, Mark, how are we going to help people customize these things and mod them? Like, what if somebody needs this exercise, not that exercise? What if they need this kind of volume or whatever, or for this home gym instead of or just traveling on the road with a band instead of a full gym? What can we do here? And they were like, yeah, you know what, an ebook isn't really going to cut it. Like, an ebook will sell money. An ebook will make a lot of money. And that was like, I wouldn't say he was so against, but he was like apprehensive about putting programs out in an app because he was like, business spec doesn't make a lot of sense. You can't charge a lot for it compared to what you can make off ebooks. The dollar value is not going to necessarily be there. And I was like, well, let's forget about that. Let's just focus on what problems do we need to solve right now. And if we create ebooks, we're probably going to create a lot more problems. Because, well, we're not solving the initial one of how do we service these people who want to apply the concepts that I'm teaching. And that's where, okay, now we have to just build out this app to be what we want it to be. And that's the same mentality where we took to say, okay, now we've got all the programs on there, we've got the workout tracker, we have the content. How can we, where are we falling short now? What's missing? And it was what are people still demanding? What problems are not being solved? And that was an obvious one was people need some more nutrition advice, need some more nutrition help, and that's where we've just launched out the full nutrition, not just calculator, that's already been there for about a year, but having some kind of tracker in there, like a MyFitnessPal, but not MyFitnessPal, our own MyFitnessPal, just to make it convenient for people. So now it's a one-stop shop for people. And with that, we started to realize, okay, now what we need to be able to start to do with this is the problem we're getting is people are now finding so much content on here, there's so much stuff on here, how do I navigate it better? Okay, we need to actually redesign a lot of this stuff to make it such a simple to use user interface that holds somebody's hand through every single step from a complete beginner to a very advanced athlete. They know what to do, how to train, how to eat, everything. And that took a complete revamp, which is what we did literally last night. We launched it all again.
Yeah, Mark was telling me about it last week.
Yeah, and it's completely different to what it was. Like, even I get confused using it from time to time because I'm just relearning, because I'm stuck on the old way of using it. And there will be a relearning process to it, but it's so much simpler and it makes so much more sense now because now there's not any problems for now.
Yeah.
that I can anticipate because everything is complete. Every question is answered. And the reason I can say that now for once is because it's been several years of us saying we've got so many problems. We've got to fix all these problems. And this was the last one of how do we not just give people nutrition content or nutrition tracking, but how do we actually make this more of a coaching platform? How do we take it away from me saying, here's a bunch of information, a bunch of stuff to follow, to now being, here is me actually essentially training you. Here's what it would be like to have a training experience with me without me actually training you. This is the closest thing you're ever going to get. And beyond that, there's no more problems that are going to arise.
Are they problems you identified, or are they problems that you just listened to your community and obviously allowed them to bring them to the surface, and then, you would have those conversations with Mark and look to get those solved?
Yeah, it'd be a little bit of both. I'd say probably the majority did come from the community. I'd say like, hey Mark, a lot of people are asking for this, or the reason why a lot of people aren't engaging as well with the app is they've come back to me and said this is missing, or they're not sure where to go, like saying there's too much information on there. Which you never think is an issue. You think content's content. The more the better. Put it on there. But there comes a point where having too much stuff is harming your business, because it starts to slow people down. It starts to become a clunky thing that they don't know how to navigate. More stuff isn't the answer. It's usually going to be about refining it and making it more and more streamlined. And that was a huge one that we always got from feedback was, this app is incredible. There's so much stuff on there and I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I said, that's actually not a good thing. It sounds really cool. They're blown away by how much is on there. It's actually, and they wouldn't even tell me as negative. They were telling it to me as a positive thing. This is so overwhelmingly awesome. I was like, yeah, that's not good. I don't want that. I don't want overwhelmingly awesome. I want you to actually be able to use this. I want you to actually be able to stick with this for life and not just be like, not be blown away by the bells and whistles and give me a cool, quick testimonial of saying, hey, this is amazing. Screenshot that, share it to social media. It's what's actually going to create a relationship. What's actually going to create a long-term customer. That's a very, very different conversation.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely like, creating the right utility. Like it's all good and well to get 100 purchases, right? Example, but it's like how many people are actually using the product, and because it's like that's like we go through we recently shifted into courses, like maybe the last 18 months, and one of the things we focus on is like course completion rate.
Right.
Now, that is just like, and you would see the same thing. It's like, how much are we actually is getting watched on the platform? You know what I mean? Like how much of this is actually getting used? And what I think once you start to enter the tech space, you kind of start to realize that when people do become overwhelmed, that's probably when they shut off and stop using the product.
Yeah, sure.
And that's something that we've just continuously looked to improve. That's our number one marker, is like how many people are actually completing the course. And that sounds really like simple, and it's like, yeah, but it's like most of the, what you can find is, and especially if you get caught up into the kind of real business mindset, is like, how many sales did we make?
Yeah.
And kind of looking at it from that perspective. This is probably going to go backwards a little bit, but I'm actually interested, when you decided to create the HQ, so Ganbaru Method. Is that what you call it? Ganbaru Method?
HQ. Yeah, Ganbaru Method is the app. Yeah.
And then you've got the HQ. So your thought patterns around that at that time. You just come back from traveling, and you like what was? Did you know that you were going to be building an app? Were they around the same time? Like, how did it work?
Got to think on that. Yeah. So timeline was, I was traveling 2016 to 2019. And the big thing through those 4 or 5 years was every single location that I was teaching in, no matter how good it was lacking, and I'd be frustrated for some reason. I'd be like, oh, this machine is missing, or there's too much noise in the background, or the acoustics aren't right, so I've got to yell, or they won't turn the music down because it's a public gym, there's too many members, or it's too cramped. There was always at least one thing, if not several dozen things, where I'd come back home after workshop being like, man, I could have done so much better if I'd had that, if I had this. And I remember probably the first ever workshop, like proper workshop that I was doing, maybe 2015, for coaches. I was talking to my video guy after, it was a good friend of mine, and I remember just telling him, man, I'm so frustrated because I know, again, same thing, I know I could have done it better if I had this piece of equipment, or if I had this space. And back then I was like, man, you should probably just look into getting your own space. And this is like from my first event, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I was like, yeah, maybe. So it's always been on my mind. And it probably got to a point around, it was around through probably the start of when I started doing international touring. Because because I had to start saying no to a lot of places. I had to start saying no to a lot of places because I knew that it wasn't going to be suitable. Or I also knew that it was destroying me to say yes to places because I would lose my voice. I'd get really sick because I was just...
You were presenting a lot, weren't you?
Yeah, it was probably 4 days out of 7 each week, and I was for like 3-4 years straight. It was rough. I'd just finished reading 2 books. It was Scar Tissue, Anthony Kiedis, and Kevin Hart's I Can't Make This Up. And both of them, in 2 different lenses, they talk a lot about touring. They talk a lot about just being workhorses and putting themselves out there and just like going into that place. It was really strange. I remember reading in Anthony Kiedis' book. I mean, he's Red Hot Chili Peppers. I think that's one of the most successful, popular bands in the world ever. Before Californication came out, they still had a couple of incredible records. They're very mainstream at that point. They were struggling for money. They were struggling. They had to tour. They were forcing themselves to tour just to make ends meet. I thought, that's kind of fucking weird. Yeah. Here's one of the most successful bands in the world, and they're talking about having, like, not being able to afford to go on tour, not being able to afford to create Californication. It was crazy. So those things in me, I said, yeah, what excuse do I have for not touring? If the demand's there, I better put my ass online and just put myself out there and do it. But yeah, it got to a point where after a few years of doing that, I realized, okay, this is actually not sustainable because of the places I'm working in. And I'm leaving now where it's no longer about just touring for the sake of touring. It's now about me wanting to create an exceptional experience. And how can I do that? And that was where I started saying, okay, this is now costing me money to not be able to do what I want to do. I need to now probably create my own space. And it was also around content creation as well, because... I was
going to ask that.
Yeah. I mean, ever since I first started filming stuff, I remember probably 2011 when I first started actually filming on my... It was a BlackBerry. This was when BlackBerry was still... I was filming on BlackBerry. And like your iPhone, it can stand up, you know, neatly. It's sweet. The BlackBerries don't, because they're all curved and svelte. Yeah. I mean, it depends what kind of cover you have, I guess. I don't have a cover on my phone. It freaks everybody out. But I remember, back then, the issues I'd always have was the same stuff. Too much noise, background music, other people. Got to be considerate of that. I'm like, okay, this is now costing me money because I've tried to film at a local gym. I spent 3 hours doing that and I couldn't get the shot right. Mm-hmm. And people are like, Eugene, you're being too nitpicky. Okay, like, does the shot really matter? Like, yeah, the shot does matter. Getting it right does matter. People want quality. People won't tell you they want quality, but they want quality. People want it. And subconsciously, like, oh, okay, this is actually filmed really well. This is very clear. I can hear things. I can see the lighting. I can whatever. It makes a big, big difference.
It's like trying, like imagine posting a photo on your feed. That's like an iPhone 3 or something.
Right.
It's like people know. Like, you know, they don't say that they know, but they know. Yeah. Like, then,
for sure.
It's 100%
for sure.
important.
And I mean, even now, I mean, Instagram, they put out in their guidelines, like, we would prefer you to have higher quality videos. It's probably going to help you in terms of breaking this algorithm, is if you actually have good stuff. Yeah. YouTube was doing that a while ago when it came to like filming in 4K, uploading videos in 4K, and when that was still like a new thing. They're rewarding that. But even notwithstanding that, it was just like I was filming something. I'd get a video guy, I'd film some pieces, just for like 20-second pieces for Instagram. I remember once I paid my videographer and I paid a couple of grand for a day. We went out to a gym and we filmed a bunch of 30-second clips that I'd be using for Instagram. Just Instagram posts, hey, here's me deadlifting. Mm-hmm. Hey, here is me doing a biceps curl. And at the end of it all, I wasn't happy with it. And I was like, wow. That just cost me $2,000 for content that, you know what, it's probably suitable, it's probably fine, but the fact is, I am not happy with it.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's not on anymore. Whereas now, that still happens. I'll spend a whole day filming something, and I'll get to the end, and I'm like, that's fucking shit. And honestly, 9 times out of 10, it's still incredible. It can go out and it will be fine. It will be a viral video. It will get me a lot of whatever engagements. But I'm still just like, no, don't do it. But the benefit is I can just go do it again. It's not an issue.
Yeah, exactly. It's not costing you $3,000 for a day to go redo it.
No, I can just go at 1 a.m. and film it again. It's not an issue to me. There's literally no limitation. And when I started to realize and really engage with that, I realized now I've got no limitation. And that's when that was a big change in my perspective on how to create content and how to just run my business in general. It was just like, okay, there are no more limitations to anything you can do. You've got no excuse now. You can just do whatever you want, and there is nothing holding you back. And that was like a big mindset shift that pushed me to then really make the gym happen. Which was around, when I was still on tour, just struggling with filming content. I thought, hey, if I had my own space, it could be incredible. And then that just opened a lot of doors for different. And that would have
been around when maybe like Instagram was really moving. You know what I mean? Like, was that a part of it? Like, were you seeing like where the world was going? Like, wow, like, because I know that you've always been doing content, but there's a difference between doing content that you'd use for a membership site versus now. This is now like a marketing channel. You know what I mean? Like, so, because you mentioned previously that you would record your workshops and then just upload them, or you would kind of repurpose that content. But now it's like, was there a time when you're on tour and you're like, wow, this is really going to be a big part of the future, and I'm probably going to need to find, have my own space where I can make this work to the, where I can make great content on a regular basis. Because that's the one thing that I would say, right, is that the thing that this has changed for me is the consistency of the high quality content. It allows me more to document. It makes content effortless because I don't feel like I'm having to create it. I just feel like it's a part of what I do now. And that's probably one thing, honestly, like I've never had a big following, and I think it's because I never crossed that bridge. Like I always felt like, I had to go to a Good Life. I remember I used to film in Good Lifes, and same thing, the music would be blaring, there's people walking around, the acoustics aren't good. And it's like, social media was such a big thing, and it's like one of these ever-evolving things that becomes a big part of your business.
Right. I never saw it like that. That never played into my mind like, oh, this is where the world's heading, or I've got to do this to be able to keep up or whatever. Because, the reality is a lot of people can hear what we've just said and be like, oh man, Eugene just said that I shouldn't bother creating content unless it's good quality. Or it's got to be of his caliber if I want to be competitive. If I want to do what Eugene does, I've got to get my own HQ. Fuck. I guess it's not a reality for me. But the big thing there is understanding where you're at in the life cycle, where you're at and what's relevant for you right now. Like now I have a niche. Now I have a USP, the unique selling proposition or whatever. I remember when I first started personal training, the first day I sat down with the personal training dude, whoever the manager, PTM, that's right, PTM was. He said, okay, Eugene, what's your USP? What kind of value can you bring to people? I thought to myself, I'm fucking 17 years old. What can I bring? I can't bring shit. I don't know a thing. Like, what do you think I can do? Like, I shouldn't be turning anybody away. I shouldn't be trying to find a niche. I shouldn't be trying to do anything exceptional or incredible. I should just be the grunt worker, taking what I can get and working and just seeing what I like, and just playing with that. And that's very different to what I say now, as however many years it is later, and it's because we're at different points of the life cycle. And the same thing, like as you go through different life cycles of your business, so will your level of content creation, so will your needs. 10, 11 years ago, even 5 years ago, if you gave me the space I have now, I wouldn't have done much with it. It wouldn't have gelled. It wasn't the right time. It could have, again, trying to circumvent time, could have snapped my fingers and given me that space, could have won the lottery, had the space. It wouldn't have actually given me as much as it has now, because there's a time and place for everything. So I think that's a very important thing to be getting real on. It's like, understand for yourself, where are you currently at? What do you really need? And maybe, how can you extend yourself a little bit to push to that next level?
Yeah. So it's not 0 to 100. It's kind of like, 2 points at a time.
Yeah.
And eventually you get to 100.
Yeah. But yeah, I never really thought about it as, I better think about this from an urgency of this is where the industry is going, this is what people are caring about more. I mean, if anything, the only time I've ever really thought about that a little bit has been TikTok recently. And that's just because a couple of people told me, you just got to get on. I thought, yeah, probably should. And that was it. I just saw how easy it is to to go viral on there, or how easy it is to create engagement on there, because right now the algorithms, because it's still a new business.
They're just literally rewarding quality content. It's not even network orientated.
No, it's not. It's none of that. I mean, that's how it's how Instagram and Facebook were. It's all about. It is all just about trying to create awareness, and they're just positive reinforcement. It's just very basic reinforcement schedule. Reinforce every positive behavior, but it won't be long until they start creating a variable reward schedule and start pulling it away from you every once in a while to make you get addicted to it. Because that's the next step. I mean, they've created addiction right now just through the very clever algorithm and constant context shifts from showing you different types of shit on your feed all the time that somehow relates to what you care about. Yeah. But eventually, if not already, they're going to start playing with things like your engagement the way that Instagram does. You know, people think, oh, Instagram algorithms change. It's like they're doing it to make you more and more fucking addicted.
Yeah, that's so true.
They've turned this into a slot machine now. Like you are gambling every time you go on Instagram. You're not gambling away your money, but you're gambling away your time. And they're very good. And all these different people are saying on social media, like, oh, here's how you hack the algorithm. It's like you're trying. What you're telling me is you're telling me how to go to Vegas and bet against the house and beat the house. The house will always win. Instagram's always going to win.
That's so true.
Because all they care about is engagement and keeping you on there, and they will do whatever they can to make sure that happens. So I try to stay out of that. I try to stay out of that.
Well, I mean, you know, and I guess that's probably why you've been out, like, because I look at it and, you know, I go consistency. You know, one thing that I've started to find is like you just need to find a mechanism that allows you to be consistent. Whatever that is. You know, for me, it's this. I know that I enjoy this. I enjoy talking to you. I don't enjoy posting on Instagram or posting on things, but I enjoy this mode. So I can do more of this, and I'd be happy to do more of this. And I think that's how do you find something that you can be consistent at? And previously, I probably just didn't have that. You know, like I was probably, you know, like what you said. I honestly think maybe I was probably doing it for the wrong reasons, or I was looking at it the wrong way. I was trying to hack the algorithm. Yeah. Instead of just finding something that I enjoy and I can be consistent at, and, you know, I'm not in a rush to, I can optimize over time. You know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely. I think it really does come down to people. There is a lot of fear associated with it. They think they've got to do things a certain way. Like they think I've got to create content very, very specific for social media. I've got to make it look like it's got to be educational, got to be professional, got to be sleek, got to be clean, got to show my ass or whatever. And again, like those things might work. Like there's probably, there is a very good system that you can lay out to say how to be successful with your content creation or whatever. But again, it comes down to consistency. And the only thing you can ever be consistent at is being yourself. That's it. So the only way you can ever create content that you're going to be able to continually create for the rest of your life is if it is something that you would actually genuinely do and connect with yourself. I remember years ago I was... I think I was listening to Tim Ferriss's podcast, and he had this guy on, Tim Urban, who has his own blog called Wait But Why. Really, really cool blog. And he was asking him all about how do you write? But this is a guy, like he's a blogger, he's an online internet blogger, which doesn't sound like much, but his blog has been so successful that it got to the point where Elon Musk was like, hey, can you like write about me? Do you want to come out to SpaceX and just document me just for your blog? That's a pretty good fucking blogger. And so Tim Ferriss was asking Tim Urban, the blogger, like, hey, what's your writing, what's your content creation strategy? You know, how do you do what you do? And what it boiled down to was he was saying, there are 7 billion people on Earth. Out of those 7 billion people, the odds are in your favor that there are going to be a large number of people who are going to be just like you. There's going to be, I don't know, 1%. But 1% of 1 billion or 7 billion is a shitload of people. Yeah. How many of those people do you really need as avid customers, as listeners or followers or whatever to be successful? That's probably plenty. Now, if you try to reach all 7 billion people, you're going to write or create content in a very specific tone, which is going to please nobody. But if you write or create content in a way that pleases you, by default, it pleases that 1% of the 7 billion, which is probably more than enough to make you very successful at what you do and very engaging. And those people will be the raving fans. And they're going to tell their friends and family or whatever who are going to be less raving fans. They're not going to care about you as much. But that's how you create your different, your little community, I guess. But it just comes down to, are you really good at understanding for yourself
what you like and all that kind of stuff.
It's a self-awareness piece again, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's kind of, and I think that's, you know, it's so true. Like, and I think that's one thing, you know, if I look back at my journey, honestly, like the transition from me to like I could talk about business and I can talk about investing and I love that stuff. And it's like, you know, the message I'm getting out of that is trying to create content for something that you aren't actually that interested in, or you're not enjoying, or it's not authentic to who you are and what you want to do. There's always going to be a point where you turn around and say, tomorrow, you know, or, you know, we'll get back on the horse next week, or like it just didn't work for me, or like, you know, TikTok wasn't my thing, or like, you know, and you know, honestly, I was probably there for a very long time. Initially, and I think it was because, you know, like that exact principle. You know, now I genuinely, anything that comes out on this podcast is something that I've probably studied for like 48 hours prior. You know what I mean? Like it's something that I'm genuinely interested in and enjoying and indulging in already. Now we're just documenting it. Now we're just talking about it. And if you're interested, that's cool. If you're not, that's cool as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's like, you know, I mean, from a content creation standpoint, like that would be a fundamental principle. Like that's what I'm getting out of the conversation anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. So what we're going to do now is we're going to dive into some quick fire questions. Now, so the way this works, everybody gets a little bit nervous around this one, but it's basically, I'm just going to ask you some questions and you don't have to rush through them or anything like that, but
well, that's not quick fire, is it?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, like it was because I had a guest. I had a guest on, like I had my stepfather, right, and he's not technological. He doesn't even understand podcasting. Like he's just like, oh, like what are we doing right now? Like, you know what I mean? And I'm like to him, all right, so we're gonna do quick fire questions. And then like I asked him a question, and I think he spoke for like 10 seconds and then just stopped. And I'm like, no, like I understand what you're trying to do, but you're allowed to talk more. Like, you know, just let it flow. So, we're going to run with that.
Okay.
Question number 1. What advice do you have for someone who's looking to start a business?
Ooh. I would say it's actually to avoid a lot of what a lot of business coaches would advise. And like, don't go to business coaches when you're starting out a business. It sounds kind of counterintuitive because they're there to help you grow and foster a business. More than anything else, like what they're going to tell you is like, oh, you got to get out there, put your face out there, get some leads, or fake it till you make it, all that kind of stuff. And they'll tell you it's really excitable, buzzing, get you really amped up, but they don't really lead anywhere. The thing that you need to be clear on with business, and I think this is something that we've just been reiterating a lot, is just been connecting with yourself more than anything else, and just accepting yourself, accepting your strengths, accepting your weaknesses, and accepting what you care about, what you don't care about. That will give you so much insight into how to run a business effectively for you. Like it'll help develop your ideal business model for you as the introvert or whatever it may be. Whereas if you went to Gary Vee, he was like, man, you got to hustle, you got to be up late, you got to just get a weekend job and just make some more money. It's like, well, that's not necessarily what you want to be doing. You don't want to be getting out there, putting your face in front of other people. I think like a really powerful book that I read was Quiet by Susan Cain. She talks all about the power of introverts and where like we live in an extroverted world where the extroverts seem to be the ones who succeed the most. So how are the introverts meant to be able to, you know, be successful at what they do? And it's like, well, hang on. Introverts actually have their own unique set of traits, unique set of positive traits. I mean, not that we're negative people, but of advantages they have over extroverted people. They have their own privileges that the world doesn't necessarily shed light on until she brought her book out. And that was very powerful. And I realized, okay, it's not about trying to fake it till you make it. It's not about trying to do what Gary Vee's doing or what other business coaches are doing, because they're going to speak from their lens, what's helped them with their personality. Yeah. You know, Gary Vee's model is incredible for Gary Vee.
Exactly.
But most of us aren't Gary Vee. Most of us don't care the way that he does or have the same personality or the same... we weren't put into the same time span that he was. So his methods may work for him when he was in growing up in business, but it's a very different landscape now, which he also respects, and he keeps up to date with that as well. But it's most important is connecting with yourself and who you are, and then saying, okay, where can I leverage my strengths and what are my weaknesses, and going from there. That will create your business model. Not that I've ever had a business model, but if I did have one, that's how I would create it.
I think for me, the way I look at it is like it's curiosity, right? Like if you understand yourself and you connect with yourself like you're talking about, it's like you kind of know what you're curious about, and then you can follow that. And following that is when it's not effortless, but it's not hard, yeah? And it's like it's not about the grind. Like for me, like I wake up at 4:30 in the morning, but I wake up at 4:30 in the morning not because I want to grind. I do it because I like it and it's quiet. Do you know what I mean? Like it's really quiet. I genuinely, that's my favorite time of the day because it's like I'm just alone, and I'm like I can study and I can do these things, and I think that you can get there's a lot of those mixed messages that can come out of this kind of stuff, and I think I always come back to I'm gonna do what I'm curious about because it interests me, and then therefore like I'm happy to work along a lot of hours. Or because I'm really enjoying it. It doesn't feel like work.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think like that's what I think once you do understand yourself and you spend time trying to understand yourself and a lot of these kind of reflective behaviors can kind of help with that, you can literally follow what you're curious about, and you will, a lot of these things that we're talking about, these kind of, like content creation. It's like, well, content creation around something that you're really curious about can all of a sudden become fun. And that's that's what I'm finding. That's just from personal experiences that if I follow what I'm curious about, I can go and it doesn't feel like work to me.
For sure. I mean, if people are struggling with content creation, probably because they're in the wrong field or they're looking at it from the wrong lens.
Yeah.
As to how to create it.
100%. All right. So question number 2. Okay, so this was, we just answered this question, so it was around social media, so we're going to cut that. Number 3 is, what advice would you give to your younger self?
It would be to just be patient. And not even just be patient, that's kind of like, it doesn't really mean much. But sometimes I like, things are going to come when they're meant to come. Things will come like you're trying to, a lot of what I was doing when I was younger was again trying to circumvent time and try to get ahead and try to find a quick fix or just level up quicker than I should be. And there's a time, place for everything. Instead of trying to think about the next step or where you want to push to and how can you get there faster, it should be where you're at right now and what are you missing out on by thinking about the future. How can you become more, I guess, present in that moment and enjoy what life has to offer in that current time? Because again, like I said at the start, we have always different life cycles of, say, business or life cycles of life. And I think part of the human condition is always what makes us unique as humans is that we have the ability to think ahead, which is a cool thing, but it's also a very dangerous thing because it pulls us out from the appreciation. And when you couple that with this just life, this current world that we live in that's just so fueled by dopamine, it continues to push us down that path of just looking for what's next, what's more, what else can I do, how can I just get ahead, and we forget to how to function in this moment. And the catch-22 is if you want to be able to do really, really cool things in the future, if you want to make $1 million or whatever, that's going to be completely dependent on what you're doing right now. Yeah. And if you're not doing it properly right now because you're thinking about that, you're just going to be in this circle jerk with yourself.
It's so true. It's so true. I've actually been microdosing magic mushrooms in the last 6 months, right?
Something you want to be publicly acknowledging on a podcast.
Yeah, well,
kudos to you.
No, but
as an illegal substance.
Yeah, but it's more around, honestly, like it has helped me a lot with that kind of stuff. Like it's honestly has.
And, for sure it would.
Yeah, and it's been something that has helped me a lot around even just my phone, man. Like not being as attached to it and stuff like that. You know, and you're right, it is illegal. So I probably shouldn't be talking about it too much. But yeah, I think in general, like it's not even about that substance or anything like that. It's more just around the lesson that I would, again, the advice I would give myself is focus on the now, focus on the people around you that you care about, and spend more time, indulging in that and doing what you can there, because it's definitely been something that's helped me a lot.
Absolutely.
Not even just then, but over the last 3-4 years, definitely.
Any time that I've had like big leaps and bounds, whether it's in just my happiness or my life, or it's actually like a business monetary thing, it's been because I've spent a good amount of time in that, like appreciating what I had at the moment. And then it gave me the power, gave me the energy, the focus. It gave me the ability to then create what I needed to create at the given time. I can't even think what it was that pushed me towards doing that more, but that's something that I've learned is just something that's so fundamental.
100%. Awesome, man. We're going to wrap it up there.
Okay.
That was an amazing conversation. A lot of insight. I think it's cool because like talking about the journey, and one thing that I got out of that is that you're just a curious guy, right? And you that's what you chase, and that's and not even chase it. That's just what you like to experience. You love to learn. And I think it's good because business we talk about business on this podcast, but the more guests we have on, and John will be able to talk about this as well, is like a lot of people are just curious, and those that achieve things, if whatever that is, follow their curiosity.
I think it's what all humans should be, and I think unfortunately a lot of I think by nature, if humans weren't curious, if humans weren't adventurous, if humans weren't problem solvers, we'd have died out as a race. We wouldn't be thriving as a race. The fact that we still do is because we can do those things. We have a frontal cortex that allows for all those kinds of things. So it actually is within every single person innately. But a lot of our modern day society has bashed it out of people. Their schooling environment has taught people that, no, you shouldn't be curious. No, you should be obedient. You should do what you're told. You should learn this. You should study that. You should become this as a doctor or become a lawyer, whatever it may be. And they get pushed down these things, and they get told that the exam is all that matters. The year 12 is all that matters. And it's like, well, that's taking curiosity away. It's taking away your autonomy, takes away problem-solving skills. So I think there's no reason why every single person can't unlearn that and learn to be curious. And that's probably my biggest privilege, is that I've been able to nurture that over time.
One last question. Sorry. What would your advice be to someone who may be struggling with that? Like, what are some of the first steps that you think someone can take
if they feel like they've lost that sight of problem solving, or what are the other things I said? Curiosity.
Yeah.
And thriving for learning. It is like those are skills, problem solving skills. Curiosity is also, it's a skill. Like you need to nourish it. So wherever you put your direction, point your focus towards, you're going to see more. You're going to grow more of it. It's just a basic context shift. So when you first start learning something, it's going to feel clunky, it's going to feel weird, it's going to feel out of your comfort zone. But then over time, you get better and better and better at doing it. And then it becomes this self-fulfilling big snowball. So if somebody is struggling and they feel like I'm not curious enough, they should just start asking themselves that in any situation, just a couple of layers, why? It could be anything. It could be, hey, you're boxing and your coach told you to do an uppercut this way, not that way. Like, I don't know nothing about boxing.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
But you shouldn't be saying, okay, I'll do that because you know more than me. You should be saying, why? Why should I do that? And it opens up a conversation for them to then tell you, oh, we do it this way because it won't snap your wrist in half. When you connect with their jaw, like, oh, that's good. Why is that important? So you can keep fighting. Thank you.
Yeah.
And if you don't, and then if they can't give you an answer, that's fine as well. It's created a question. It's created a thread for you to pull on. And then you just got to get comfortable pulling on that thread. And then you'll start to realize just through basic reinforcement that it's a good thing to ask these questions, and it's an enjoyable thing if you like boxing or whatever. It
pulling on
enjoyable.
The right thread was one thing I was going to say before. Like not just pulling a thread, but make sure it's the right one.
Yeah. So but it is practicing doing those things, which sounds kind of counted or just kind of weird, but that's literally it. It's if you suck at problem solving, put the onus on yourself to try to solve the problem. Or, you know, if you want to ask a friend, go ahead, ask other people, find experts in your field, but don't be passive. Be active in that process of solving the problem so you can solve it yourself in the future. And you'll just become that over time.
Awesome. Such a great answer. We're going to wrap it up there. I want to say a massive thank you, man. I really appreciate your time. I know that everyone's going to love it.
Fantastic.
Just
my pleasure.
The wisdom that you bring to it, and I think it's quite refreshing. You know, a different perspective on business. You know, like I think it really is, and I think it'll help a lot of people. So, massive thank you to you.
Thank you.
What I'll get you to do is, where can people find you? So, Instagram. Is the apparel just for the Ganbaru community?
No, it's for anybody.
It's anybody.
Yeah,
So, is there a website for that?
Yeah. So, I would just probably tell people just search my name and you'll get caught into the honeypot somehow, and you'll find all everything else there is about me.
Yeah, cool.
You'll find me
on the gram.
social media.
Start on the gram.
Start on the Instagram. That's a very easy entry level point, and then whatever.
Have a wander.
Yeah, have a wander around.
Cool. Awesome, man. Really appreciate your time. John, thanks for your time as well. Appreciate your work. For everyone who tuned in, thank you. Appreciate you guys as well. Really hope you enjoy the episode, and we'll see you next time. Hey guys, so as we end today's podcast, I wanted to say a massive thank you to you. You've made it to the end, so you've tuned into the whole episode, which is something that we're extremely grateful for. If you're new to the podcast, hitting the subscribe button is really, really important to us because it really helps us out a lot. The more subscribers we get, the more, the bigger the community we build, the more that we can progress with our vision, and the more that we can start to expand and keep having, these amazing conversations. So we're really thankful. And one thing that we're also really thankful for, which, has been a big driver for me personally with the podcast, is just the messages that we get on the Instagram. I still go through the Instagram and like to have conversations with people that are engaging with us. It means so much, and it's great to hear the stories of people progressing and learning and how we're impacting you, the listener. So that's something we're really appreciative of. And I actually want to go through and actually mention some people who we had some great conversations with on our social media, these people reached out. So Alicia Pyers, it was great chatting with you, and I'm super appreciative for you reaching out to the Instagram, and it's great to hear your story and what's inspiring you and the changes that you're making. And also Jess Dinning. Jess was lucky enough to talk to you last week, and that was really, really amazing. And just the same thing goes. The conversations that we have with you guys, it's crazy how much of an impact it makes on us as a company and what we're striving to do. So a massive thank you to you two and everybody else who's reaching out and sharing and doing those things. But the two things that you can do that will help us the most is make sure that you're subscribed, and a big thanks to everyone who's leaving reviews as well, because that shows people that this is a safe space for them to come and listen and learn, and that's really the most important things to us. Really hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we will see you next week.